The day that changed the world started for Jesus just around midnight in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was arrested on the orders of Caiaphas, thrown into prison in a cell under Caiaphas's house, and then tried in a kangaroo court and convicted of a charge that carried the death penalty. Jesus' arrest led to his crucifixion just 12 hours later. The Romans had him, and they weren't going to hang around in handing out their punishment. About 20 years ago, I had the opportunity of spending some time in Israel. We visited the prison cell under Caiaphas's house, and we walked along the streets that Jesus may have walked along carrying the cross on the way to Golgotha. We went to Golgotha, the place of the skull. There's a vantage point where you look across and see a crop of rock, and even 2,000 years later, you can still make out the shape and outline of a skull. And it wasn't on a green hill far away. It was thought it was quite a busy intersection, a junction, so that the Romans could show publicly people what happens if you break their laws. I think we can sometimes sanitize Good Friday, or perhaps we've become desensitized to the brutality of the punishment Jesus was subjected to. If you've seen any of the film The Passion of the Christ, that brutality hits home. From the 39 lashes with a leather whip, with jagged pieces of flint and rock that were cut into the flesh, to the crown of thorns, to the nails through his hands and feet to attach him to the cross that was hoisted up for him to hang on for 6 hours. And that was just the physical punishment. He was rejected by the religious leaders, the government, and the people, and the disciples were conspicuous by their absence. There was also the spiritual punishment. He's abandoned, deserted, stranded by God himself, and he feels this intense pain of loss and loneliness in the core of his soul. And to think that none of this was a surprise to Jesus. It's often said that Jesus was born to die. He knew the scriptures and knew that long before he was born, prophecies had been given that would describe the method and approach to his death. Here are just a few of them. In the book of Psalms in the Bible it states, "My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet." And again, "They divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing." And finally from Psalms, my God, why have you abandoned me?" The words that Jesus cried out on the cross. But why was he born to die? Well, it started in the first garden, the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve rebelled and did what God had not asked them, he told them not to do. Adam, the first perfect man to be born. In fact, Jesus is often referred to as the second Adam. But where Adam gave into temptation, Jesus overcame it. Adam and Eve's disobedience created a chasm between God and man, a chasm that still exists. But it was the second Adam, Jesus, who came to bridge that chasm and give us a way back to God. The punishment we deserve for everything we've done wrong and everything we'll ever do wrong, he took when he was nailed to that cross. Someone once said, when we look at the cross, we see that God is so much more angry with us than we'd ever dared fear, and yet so much more loving than we had ever dared hope. God loves you, period. God loves you. God loves me. Do you believe it? Do you believe it that he would send Jesus to take your punishment? Like Adam, we've messed up. We've missed the mark. You may have heard it referred to as sin. The Message translation of the Bible puts John 3:16-18 like this. "This is how much God loved the world. He gave his son, his one and only son. And this is why, so that no one need be destroyed by believing in him. Anyone can have a whole and lasting life." God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help, to put the world right again. Anyone who trusts in him is acquitted. Anyone who refuses to trust him has long since been under the death sentence without knowing it. And why? Because of that person's failure to believe in the one-of-a-kind Son of God when introduced to him. We deserve the death penalty, but Jesus took it for us. He died for you. He died for me. But you need to choose what to do with that. Do you choose life? In the book of Romans, it says that if you speak out that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. It's by believing in your heart that you are made right with God. And it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. Getting back to Good Friday, it's recorded that at noon when Jesus was on the cross, the earth went dark. The world fell silent. The laws of nature were suspended. The author of creation touched the sun and brought darkness. The whole earth grieved and mourned. At about 3 o'clock that afternoon, Jesus breathed his last, and with a cry of, "It is finished," a shout of victory that ended the darkness, and the earth shook. Jesus was taken down from the cross, his body wrapped and placed in a tomb, a stone rolled outside, and a guard placed outside the tomb so that nobody would steal the body. So as day turned to night, all hope was gone. Death thought it had won. Heaven just started to count to 3. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming.